if we consider that tea and coffee rival one another as the second most consumed beverage in the world next to water, then of course that everybody is drinking coffee all of the time, it would seem. It's a highly popular beverage. However, there are almost different markets for coffee. There is your, as you were saying, Mike, there's coffee that you pay cents for. Yeah, so there's much cheaper coffee that is produced from different countries and consumed in different ways. Then there is this specialty coffee market that Michael spoke about in some detail, in which Stuart's just touched on, which creates a really different idea of what coffee is. It creates the idea that there is a story behind each cup of coffee, which I've heard Wendy Roach mention before, suggesting that there is a strong relationship between who grew the coffee, who picked it, who processed it, who transported it, who roasted it, and then who has gone ahead and brewed it in a particular way. What interests me, for the purposes of our panel discussion and for the specificities of what's likely to happen in Perth in the future, is the ways in which we associate a cafe with that kind of story. So the kind of cafe that you prefer to go to and what it means to you. The reason I'm thinking about this is because Julie Hosking wrote an opinion piece in the West this week saying that she was in tears because one of her favourite Belgian cafe houses closed down, and it was one of those places where she felt strongly associated, not with the cup of coffee, but with the establishment itself. And I got to thinking about what franchises might mean for that. Rents in Perth are really high, and so there are some places that just can't afford to open, particularly in shopping centres and those areas that are really well frequented. So what do you think about the ways in which our cafe culture is likely to go in terms of places being crowded out of the market because of rents being so high?
I think that is true. I think there is a point to, when I went back to Europe last year, what I saw was the tendency to move towards building bigger shopping centres and, not having the smaller cafe. So even in Europe, they are going towards bigger shopping centres where you pay a huge rent. But I think, I don't know, but I have a feeling that what people want here, and it's funny, isn't it, that you want a coffee shop that knows what kind of coffee you drink, but you don't really know your neighbour. I find that funny sometimes too, but that's obviously the way people like it. So I think there might be a move here. I think we're a bit different in Perth. I think we like to have that sort of village type of feel, like for example around Leederville, around Subi. I think people like the Continental Deli Cafe. And again, I think that's all, that was here before I came, but it's just that it's just evolved a little bit more now. I think that the bigger chain will probably do better in the bigger super shopping centres than on the street corner of Leederville or Subi or Lebanon.
I think you're right. I think in a shopping centre, the pressure's always going to be on franchises because they're the only ones who have a good business model that might survive the fluctuations or the depredations of the rental agents of the place. But I think that for outside those environments, and all Tracee, Yvonne and Stuart have all talked about cafes in a really fascinating way in terms of spaces that people come to. And there's actually a theory around this called the theory of the third place. And that's the place that you value most after your home and your workplace. And I think that in Perth, and Greens is an excellent example of this, of being a third place. It is one of the places that people go to, the lighting, the ambience, the familiarity, where they feel comfortable. It's a place of social transaction, it's a place of commercial transaction, it's a place where people interact with each other, even with strangers who are in that environment. We are seeing that in a lot of Perth's cafes. And the ones that are going to survive rental changes are the ones that become valuable to people for something other than only the coffee. And what Tracee said earlier was great in terms of getting beyond this fascination with specialty coffee. That might sound strange coming from me, but it does get annoying to hear people rave on and on about this great bean they've found it. It's nice when we can relax and just go in and order coffee, even if it's from a menu of different coffees, but be relaxed about that process and not overly fascinated with the detail of the coffee. And that whole social experience that a cafe is and should be, and that you alluded to from the history of coffee coffee in Britain, which they lost. They had Lloyd's Insurance. Weren't Lloyd's Insurance, they were Lloyd's Coffee House, where commercial transactions and insurance were carried out. And we now know of it only as Lloyd's Insurance rather than the coffee entity that it originated as. So yes, we need to get back to having cafes as places where people go and spend time. And one of the saddest things for me in coffee is watching people grab their takeaway cup and storm off down the street, sort of focused on what they've got in their hand. That loses the social experience. And yes, it's part of the coffee market. It's absolutely essential. But it's sad that it also means that loss of social interaction.
Do you think there's an element of what the cafe says about you too? Do you think so? Because I feel like people, you might go to Citrine because you want a sophisticated experience. So today I feel sophisticated and I'm going to sit there in this lovely surroundings. And yet another day I might go to some other Mediterranean style place because that's how I feel and that's how I want to be seen today. To be able to be identified with the space and remove that from time.
We all wake up, our personalities fluctuate in and out.
Absolutely. How do I feel today? Where do I want to be drinking my coffee today?
Sorry.
Don't be sorry. Don't you, as operators, think too that cafes serve some sort of a social purpose too, and they always have. Like if you go back, famous coffee houses have been known to be the first place of poetry and all revolution and all that. So that's really nothing new. I actually think that that's going to continue forever. If you go out, you go and eat somewhere and you like the food, you like the coffee, but you might not necessarily be interested in where the bean is from.
I think we almost lost it though.
Yeah.
I think in the last 5 or 10 years we almost lost that aspect.
Now it's
In terms of a lot of new cafes opened and it was all about the bean. Only about the bean. There was no food served, it was just you went in, you got your coffee, focused on the coffee and left. And they weren't encouraging environments for social interaction because they had this big pumping music all the time. You couldn't talk. So,
one question that I have is, think about people who used to make coffee in the 80s and 90s. They're quite often identified as a coffee maker, not a barista. A barista being someone who's engaged in extensive training and has a strong passion for coffee and sees it as a career, not something that they are doing while they're studying at uni. Quite a different focus. Baristas then probably wore a polo t-shirt and a pair of jeans and an apron or something like that. Now, baristas have tats all over their bodies, shaved heads.
They've got a machine called a slayer.
Yeah, they do. There is a slayer in Perth, as well as earrings and so on and so forth. What will a barista look like in 2020?
Well, I've got just
You said it's
wrinkles.
yeah, that tat's never good at
She might be an academic. She might be an historian.
She might be.
Hey,
They will all be that, but they will be quick.
yeah.
They'll be picky
They can
because
be anything they want to be, but they got the opportunity to be really quick for that 6-hour shift. I just want to sow that seed of thought for now. If we get it going now, then in 2020, we're going to have some coffee makers.
the more you do something, the better at it you get and the quicker you become. So
Yeah, well, we'll keep
if you
trying.
can keep becoming a barista, you should be there.
Now that raises an interesting point. We're assuming espresso.
Yes.
I'm assuming espresso will still be the king there. But we are seeing some cafes choosing a variety of ways to serve coffee. Now, espresso is good from a commercial point of view because it is quicker, quicker than pour-overs or quicker than all kinds of other equipment. But there is that slowdown in the way coffee is made in some cafes, and maybe we're going to see cafes that offer. You can have espresso, or you can have pour-over, or you can have drip filter. And actually, drip filter is one that is making a bit of a comeback. Good old American style, and you're seeing these drip filter machines. It's a very different style of coffee. But from a cafe's perspective, it's excellent because you can have it running all the time, pouring out the sofa for iced coffees or blacks or things like that. gained some acceptance that surprised me at first. But I've been drinking it and enjoying it. So,
vinyl CDs, they're still old school. I think espresso will always be. Now, when I say espresso, let's forget the pillows and all the other bits. Basically, I read somewhere there's 4 different types of coffees that serve short. Yeah. That's great. Espresso, let's call it all that. I think that will still be around.
I'd agree.
And based on that, there'll always then be your derivatives of. Yeah. And thank goodness for the old standard roaster, manual coffee machine.
Yeah, I'd agree.
So.
I don't